And welcome to the Beyond Enough podcast, where we go deep diving into the real stories of women creating something beyond enough for themselves, taking it further with business, with healing, with love and relationships, and choosing more for themselves, choosing more for their families, and probably walking the less trodden path to their dreams. And today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by the beautiful Katie, and we have lots of beautiful golden threads in common in terms of the way we serve our clients, but also I think our stories, and that's what we're going to deep dive into today. I'm going to let Katie introduce herself. This is really a story of resilience, and it's really a story of continuing to choose yourself and to choose more for yourself, and then taking that even further and helping to heal the world around you with your own mission and your own purpose and your business. So without further ado, please, Katie, tell us a little bit about, I guess, first who you are and who you serve at the moment, and then we can dive into the stories and the journey that led you here.
Excellent. Well, it's lovely to be here, Amy. Thank you. I'm Katie, and my business is called Katie's EFT Coaching, and I support mums who are struggling with what I call an emotional rucksack. So it's where you're carrying with you stuff from the past that just seems to stick with you like glue, and it shows up in your day-to-day life, and you think, why am I repeating the same pattern? Why am I still doing this? Why am I still triggered by these same things? Through using EFT and coaching questions, we trace it back to, okay, so when did all this start? And let's unpick this, and also let your body heal from that as well. Because I know from my own personal journey, it's like it's not just necessarily all the chatter that's going on in your head, but it's also how your body feels in that moment. Personally, I've known how much EFT has helped me to heal those moments when your body's just saying, oh my God, it's just so unsafe right now.
Yes.
And it could be the smallest thing. It could just be someone hooting at you in the street or something. It could be the smallest thing that sets you off and triggers you, but your body remembers as if it's still back then. And so I really help support mums heal from that, so they can be present and be their best selves in front of their kids, and also encourage their kids to...
Integral part of my own work, my personal work, and how I then my clients, because I think, like you say, there's so much we can do in the mind, in terms of mindset, in terms of perspective, in terms of rewiring our subconscious, right? But I think you're right. I think a lot of this is energetic, and I think our body does remember, and it's stored within us. And until I actually started exploring that, I feel like a lot of the limitations I had consciously, I was like, I've worked through that. Actually, it went deeper, right? Like those wounds were much deeper than could just be healed by a positive affirmation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many times you say something like, I am confident.
Totally.
If there's an unconscious message saying, but...
We see, like mindset and let's do this. But I think for the majority of people, emotional freedom and any kind of work around emotional health is still quite a new... It's still seen as a bit woo-woo.
Really is, Although the thing I love about this is it's so science-backed. And so it actually isn't woo-woo, it's massively scientific. And I don't know whether you follow Petter Stapleton, this lovely lady in Australia who does so much research in EFT, and she's actually done some brain scans where she's injected like a blue dye, and it shows the meridians.
I love that, and I think it's great to have these facts and figures behind, like the science behind why this really works. But I love trying to encourage my clients, but my audience as well, that not everything has to have a metric attached, right? Like sometimes we can come and do these things and they just feel really good, and they unlock a part of you that you didn't know was there. And actually, let's take away that need to always have everything in a box or to be a tick list, and actually come to a session, uncover all of that emotional load that you've been carrying forever. And it doesn't need to be, let's tick a box. It can be just how you feel in the moment. And I think that's what I love about EFT, is that we actually come to a session and say, what do you need today? Like, it's not necessarily like, you have these big goals, let's push ourselves towards them. Actually, what is that emotional overload? What does that look like today? Let's accept it. Let's see how you're truly feeling.
And the one massive thing I've learned from EFT is about self-compassion. And I didn't really get it. I didn't really connect with it before, but now I really get it. Like, we're so kind to our best friend. We say, oh gosh, of course, it's natural you're feeling that way, but we never say that to ourselves, do we? Mm-hmm. And yet with EFT, I love the fact that you accept how you're feeling right now.
I work with a lot of coaches, and I think it's so easy for us to mask things with this toxic positivity. And I used to hate that expression. I thought, how can you be toxically positive? But it is a case of actually suppressing emotion, right? Like, if we're feeling, okay, business isn't how I want it to be, but I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be positive. I want to be high vibe. You're suppressing the part of you that's saying you're not happy with how things are just now. And that's okay. It's okay to feel like that, right? I'd love to know, from your perspective, and from previous conversations with you, I know that there is a story behind why this is so important to you, but I'd love to take us back to the pivotal moments, I guess, in your own life that have led you to want to, I mean, I don't think there's any women in business that's going to say this is the easy path, right? Like, it's not. Like, we choose this, and in itself it presents us with so many challenges, but we choose it anyway. And so I'd love to know from your perspective what those moments were in your life that led you to say, do you know what, this is actually something that I know I can help other women with, and something that I feel so passionately about that I'm going to start actually my own business and take that again, that kind of less walked path, right? Like, into the world of business.
Yeah. So I started the world with a mum who I've now understood to have narcissistic traits. It wasn't really a label. I didn't really understand. I thought it was all about me. I thought there was something wrong with me. It was like my brother could do no wrong and I could do no right. And so I seemed to get the blame for everything, and I didn't seem to get the love that I really wanted or needed. And so I grew up thinking there was basically something wrong with me. Well, why am I not lovable? What's so wrong with me? And also there was this other little thread in the family of everyone's so intelligent apart from me. And so I just grew up, you know, especially being young, you do think, well, this must mean I'm the defective one here, and so you sort of I carried that along with me, and I could not leave home quick enough, and so I ended up in an abusive relationship, basically, and he just added fuel to the fire. I could do no right. There's a few events. I came home from work one day, I got the bus, and I got one bus later than normal. And we were living in a mid-terraced house at the time, and him, in his wisdom, decided to have this bonfire going on in the back garden, and he'd been carrying through stuff from the front garden into the back garden through the house, and he'd locked himself out. And then as soon as I arrived home, because I was 15 minutes later than he'd expected me to be, he'd got himself in a right tiz by this point, and he just demanded the keys, and then locked me out. And it's funny how my memory just stops there. I don't know. Obviously, I ended up getting back in the house again, but it's like he basically said it was my fault again. And of course, because I'd had all this history with my mum, I just sort of believed it. I know that doesn't. My logical brain says, "Well, how could you believe it?" But my body just felt that was the safest thing to do. It was like please and appease, you know. Oh yes, it's all my fault. I'm so sorry. And obviously, eventually, he let me in, but like. Events like that, my confidence just went lower and lower and lower, to the point that I did have a miscarriage with him, and to the point that he denied that maybe I wasn't even pregnant, so I wasn't given the chance to grieve for that pregnancy, and it was one argument one day when he was saying, well, I'm going to leave you, and he knew jolly well that he said, well, you won't be able to cope without me and all this sort of stuff. So I remember sort of grovelling, pleading, and I'm thinking, oh my God, can you hear yourself, Katie? And it's like I had this like out of body moment. I could like hear myself and think, no, it's like you've hit rock bottom. Like there's only one way out of this now. There's only one way up. I can't carry on like this. And I knew I wanted a child at some point in life, and I thought, wow, I don't want you to be the dad. So that was like the turning point.
Gosh.
And So I started secretly packing, and I thought one day I'm going to have the courage to do it. I don't know when, but when I do, I know I'm going to have to do it quickly, because that courage might not last long. Anyway, so thankfully that day arrived, and I left him, just thank God. And I'm very happy to say I've got 2 lovely 20-something-year-old daughters now, which is absolutely wonderful. But it's funny how, as much as I'm free of him and free of my mum, it stays with you like children.
For me, like, there'll be so many women who are listening to this who have been in a toxic or abusive relationship who know exactly what we mean, like that pre-decision of, I know I have to leave. And I still, to this day, say it's the bravest thing I ever did. I was terrified to leave. I was terrified. But you get to a point where you have to. Like, you physically have to. But it's still terrifying. And to understand, you know, the mental ties that have kept you there for so long. Like, it's, you know, it's so easy to say, well, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you, you know, this was happening to you? But you are being gaslit every day. You are being, you know, made out to think that you are the problem and that you are the broken one by someone who is taking full advantage of that, and who has worn you down over years to keep you there. So I just fully relate. Thank you very much. It's so hard. It is so hard to leave the safety. Again, all you've ever known from any person who's ever loved you, right, is that this is how you're treated. This is the only, like, you're never going to get better than this. Relations again. I just think it's like, from one woman another woman who's done it is so difficult to leave, and you chose something better for yourself. And like you say, you've got your little, well, maybe not little now, but they'll always be little to you, right? Like, and tell us a little bit about then what happened after leaving, and how you started to, I guess, rebuild.
Well, the first thing I did was I booked a trip to Nepal. One of my ways of handling things, certainly back then, was to do something physical. And so, oh no, tell lies, the first thing I did was booked a trip to Wales, an adventure weekend. And one of the days was rock climbing, and it was, imagine Wales, pouring with rain. And there's this part of this rock that I think I was like 3/4 of the way through the group to do this thing, and I kept seeing people get stuck at this same point. And I'm thinking, okay, everyone's struggling with that bit. So I got up there and I got to that same bit, and I think the point was energy levels were getting slower by that point. And I didn't realise, it was such a windy, rainy day, I sort of went a little bit outside myself, and I just yelled, you are not going to get the better of me anymore. And then all of a sudden I had this spurt of energy, and I got to the top. But the funniest thing was, when I got to the boss, and I said, do you feel better?
That's absolutely brilliant. This will not defeat me.
It was like I could hear his voice in my head saying, you're no good for anything. Oh, you know, you fail at that, and you'll, you know, down voice. You know.
So for me, it was like hiking. Like, it's escapism, but it's also, like you say, that physicality of almost building that mental strength and resilience through physically building that strength and resilience almost.
But also I think, like, with EFTs, energetics, I feel like there's something energetic about that as well. Because the other thing I did was a trek around Nepal, and I think it was something like 156 miles, and I don't know, 15,000 feet was the highest peak or something, and it was something about physically exhausting myself, but saying, I did that. And no one can tell me I can't now, because I've got evidence that I can do it. Proving
often
to myself
when I speak to my clients who often have low confidence, low self-trust, all these things, one of the main things that we discuss and that I invite them to do is to start building evidence, right? Like, build evidence contrary to what you've been told. Build evidence against what you currently believe. Prove to yourself that that is not the case. And like you say, I think with the hiking or the treks or the rock climbing, you're almost putting in those layers of evidence of like, I've said I'm going to do it, and therefore I'm going to do it, and building up that self-trust and that confidence that you can only do through action.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And it's almost like that proof, that photograph shows, you see, no one can deny that.
Yes, you can't.
No one can say I can't, because I've got photographic evidence that I did it.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. No, totally. And that's so, because like sometimes you think, well, maybe they're right, maybe they, you know, but no, when you've got physical evidence.
Yes. So, you know, a lot of women that I speak to who have left situations similar to us, there's always this story of like, I went out and you know, women just go when they leave. They're like, it's the glow up, isn't it? The post-separation glow up of like, nobody's going to tell me shit. Oh,
yes.
I'm obsessed with you, Katie.
Yeah.
I know.
Absolutely.
And so when did you first find, I guess, the you know, the personal development, the healing work, the EFT, like how did that come into your life?
So it first started a little bit before that with, I had my eldest daughter first, and I'm a little bit of a person that I like to keep my brain ticking over. So I went through all these different hobbies. I like photography and all this sort of stuff, and I thought I was thinking long term, like what job could I end up having? I knew I didn't want to ever work in an office again, and I kept ticking things off, and then someone suggested to me, oh, why don't you go and do a counselling course? I think you'd be really good at that. So, and I thought, actually, secretly, through the back door, I can actually start healing myself. Because there was a bit of an underlying message certainly with my mum, it's like, no, go out to the world with a big smile on your face and pretend everything's fine. And so I hadn't actually gone and sought any help to heal that. So I went on a training course, and I had my own personal counselling that you have to become qualified. But the problem was I kept getting triggered and kept getting frozen, and I didn't know it then, but your brain cannot resolve issues and cannot think through, get yourself unstuck. You know, your brain just isn't operating from the right place. And there wasn't much knowledge about trauma-informed anything really back then. Thankfully, there's a lot of learning since. And so I ended up volunteering at a women's refuge and supporting women through there. And obviously they were massively traumatised too. And I was coming across similar hurdles of, it's almost like they kept going round and round in circles and re-traumatising themselves when they were telling the story. And I'm thinking, okay, this is getting frustrating. There's got to be another way. So I did pause that. And but I kept reading loads of psychology books and self-help books. I was like, I was going to find the thing that really works for me. And that's when I found out about EFT.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
And at first I thought, well, how on earth is that weird. Like, tapping on it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like my logical brain thought, not so sure. But it wasn't until I actually had a go, and I physically felt my body calm while I was still telling that same story. And I'm thinking, hang on, I'm not jittery, I'm not nervous, I'm not anxious, and you know, some stories might make you well up or something, but oh my goodness, okay, I'm not feeling that anymore. That's amazing.
I find it really funny because I went into higher education, I went to university, I had never touched on this world, and when I found the online space of like coaching and everything, I was like, wow, this is where I belong. And similarly to you, I stumbled across EFT on my journey, and it was one of those things where I thought, okay, I believe in energy healing, I believe in this, you know, that there's something here. I know that personally a lot of somatic practices have really helped me, so this makes total sense, but it comes across as a bit a woo-woo. But it is one of those things where you do initially, your reaction can be a bit like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you tapping on your face? I think as a practitioner though, and you're probably the same.
Yeah.
Seeing the difference in people, working through these deep-seated emotions, belief, and seeing them then shift years of being kept small with this practice is truly astounding.
Someone said to me recently, like tell the story technique, I can't remember, like I said, so start back at the beginning, how does it, she said, how does it start?
Yeah.
Now. That's how, like, and yet at the beginning of the session, she said, I don't think I'll ever stop feeling this way about this event.
Yeah. Consciously, we just go, I don't care about that, and detach. That's not emotional detachment. Emotional detachment happens when you really fully immerse yourself in that feeling in a safe way.
No.
With someone who is able to do that and able to hold you in that moment and release it. Physically release it, right? Because if you're suppressing it or trying to detach from it, all you're doing is storing that energy in your body and saying, I don't want to deal with you right now. And there is only so much that I think we can do that as people, and you see it all the time. Like, people are so emotionally overwhelmed. People are really struggling emotionally, and it's because for years we've been told, suppress it, put a brave face on, pretend it's not there.
It's like the rubber duck analogy. You've got a rubber duck in a bath, you squash it down.
It's a practice of emotional regulation. If you don't want to be so reactive and have more control of your emotions in the moment, you need to be able to understand how to actually process your emotions.
Yeah.
And that's a continuing journey.
And that's why, like, that I tap every day, basically. And, like, I might tap on the worst part of the day, and like, it might just be, this thing really triggered me today, and I'll just calm that down. Or if I've got a bit longer, I'll think, why did that trigger me so much? What was that about? And I'll think, oh yes, it was so and so that happened 10 years ago or something, and I'll tap on that. But just, it's, so there's different layers to the tapping that I love. It could just be, oh my goodness, I want to get to sleep, and will my brain just shush for a minute? So I'll tap to just calm my nervous system so I can get to sleep, or I'll tap to go deeper, or if I'm struggling, like this, it's too knotted, then that's where I'll go and seek help.
Other practices, and that's why they're called a practice, right? Like, it's not something. It's not got an end destination. Like, you don't get to a point where you're like, okay, that's that done. It's an evolution, isn't it? Of, like you said earlier, like peeling back these layers from years and years of not feeling good enough, or years and years of hiding your true self, or years and years of suppressing how you feel to please others. Especially, I think, as mothers, so much, and it's necessary, right? Like, when you have small children, you are just getting through the days sometimes, because it's a lot, and you're no longer looking after just yourself. You have small people who need you, and through that journey, we sacrifice a lot, and that is part of the parcel, right? But then we have to come out the other side of that and say, well, actually, I need some attention in order to bring my best self to the kids.
Innocently, children press your buttons. It's like I imagine this big red rucksack on your back, and you've got these big red buttons like, that one hurts. Oh yes, ouch, that hurts. And they don't mean to, but like so for instance, it could be in the supermarket, and they'll have a good old hissy fit on the floor, and you'll go really embarrassed, like everyone's looking at you. The kid's just being a kid, but you can still work on why you are personally so embarrassed, or so it's or like, oh my goodness, parents' evenings at school. I always felt like a little child saying, like, I'm going to get told off. You don't have to have these big traumas. It can be these tiny little things, like, say you were reading at school when you were 5, and and someone sniggered at you, and you said, right, okay, I'm never going to put myself in that vulnerable position again.
I remember being at primary school in primary 6 and 7 and really struggling with math, and I was very much a little people-pleasing A student who just very nerdy and wanted to make everyone happy, mostly my parents, and the fact that I was struggling with it is like, my mum and dad said that I lost like half a stone in a week. Like, I was in bits because I could not do this math, whatever it was, I can't remember. But I remember the feeling of being terrified and so horrifically, like, on a nervous system level, being so horrifically embarrassed and feeling like I will never get this, and I'm not good enough, and what's the even point of me being here? And I was like so young. Like I was so young to be having those emotions. But at the time, like my parents' solution was to march me into the school to speak to the teacher. And I remember being like, "You can't fix me. I'm so broken. Like doesn't matter what you say to this teacher. Like I will never be good enough." So even they couldn't tell me, and my parents were great. Like I was very privileged as a child. I was very loved, but they were like, these people were not. We're speaking about all of this now, but this was not a thing like 20 years ago. It wasn't. Like, it was such a small thing. Like, there'll be other people, other children who just did not care about their performance at school. But for some of us, that's been the linchpin for a lifetime of not feeling good enough. And a linchpin for putting up with a toxic man because he perpetuated these cycles and fed into your belief system. And, it could be something so simple as, like, I couldn't do a maths equation, but that was so big to me back in the day. It doesn't, like you say, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a very small thing that snowballs over time.
School. I had a very shouty teacher in the infant school, and I remember looking around thinking, everyone else understands this, and I don't understand it. So I went up, and she sent me back, no, keep trying, you can do it. And I just got so scared of being told off that she's going to look at, and I'm not going to advise anything. I worked myself up so much.
Yeah, of course.
I was sick at the time.
People are just doing the best they can, and I think the more forgiving we can be I really do think it's an infinity wheel here, like the more forgiving we are of other people, the more forgiving we are of ourselves, the more forgiving we are of other people, and understanding that everyone's just doing the best they can with what they've got, the tools they've got at the time. And certainly, school now, your children are a bit older, but mine are still in primary school. There is so much more work around emotional regulation and understanding how to, in terms of learning, but also in terms of social development. And we are now understanding the value of that work, but that was not a thing. Even my older daughter, that wasn't really a thing for her when she started school. It's very recent of it, and we're
really?
We're here for it.
Well, thank goodness it is there now.
So anyway, I love that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on taking this practice, and then of course I know you started with the counselling, but I would love to know how transition went for you of, okay, now I love this and I understand that this is something that I really love, but then actually, okay, I'm going to launch a business. Like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it myself. Because that is I think for a lot of women who are coaches or healers or practitioners, they get to that point of being like, okay, now I need to tell people that I'm starting a business and like actually try to like and have people pay me for my services, and like that seems to be a roadblock for a lot of women.
Yeah, totally. Well, it still is a steep learning curve. But it's like so I learned EFT, and then I had a year to process my own stuff, and I'm still obviously processing it, but and then I just took it baby step by baby step, and I thought, okay, so what's the first thing I need to do? People need to understand what I do, and so I need to promote myself. That was scary. Doing the very first video was absolutely terrifying.
I love that.
But I tapped beforehand and like, what is this actually about? Why am I so terrified? And so then I got the first video. It feels huge.
Yes.
Yeah. But actually, no, everything's still ticking over. It's all still fine.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then it's like creating a website and the technology. And I remember pressing publish.
I love that.
Oh my God, I feel sick. I'm thinking, actually, no, once again, I'm still fine. And I was tapping away like, what is... And, things like, even if it didn't make sense to me, I'd like maybe journal and tap, or... even if it didn't logically make sense why I was nervous, just, okay, this is just how I'm feeling right now, and that's okay. I accept myself and give myself compassion, and just going to take one baby step by baby step by baby step. And it's like you said, building up the evidence, like, okay, I've done 10 posts now. Well done, you. Well done. I've done 10 posts. Right, let's try another 10 posts. And not like reaching for the star, just like, what's the next little thing my nervous system can cope with right now, and then building and building and building. And I didn't try and rush it, and I guess lots of businesses are like, I've got to be here by next year or whatever. No, I'm just gonna this is a journey for me, and and that's okay for my nervous system and my, I just take the learnings as they come and grow bit by bit. But so many, and interestingly, like I did my first presentation at networking. Oh my word, I was so nervous, and I tapped on loads of things. But then what suddenly dawned on me, which I hadn't really... so one of the beauties of EFT is that you have to approach it like 360 degrees. And so I tapped on... and as you tap on one thing, the next thing it shows up almost like layers of an onion, And it suddenly dawned on me, I thought, oh my word, this feels like an exam. And I'd never really associated it like that. And I thought, no wonder, it's the fear of remembering everything. It's the fear of, will I get it right? And so before I'd sort of just tapped on the eyes on me and all that sort of stuff, but now I'd sort of gone under that layer. I'd obviously cleared that, and now I thought, no, there's a new aspect here. It's like, feels like an exam. So I tapped on that, and then it's like, no, I think I'm all right. And then I did the presentation. I thought, oh, phew, that went well. But it's I love the fact that visibility about going on social media. Why? It related back to when I was 17. I'd done this parachute jump for charity, and the history teacher at college was into publishing and promoting the college, and he said, oh, can I do an article about the parachute jump? Because I was doing it for MenCap, I think, raising money. And we had a really unusual surname. And so in those days we had phone books, and so our surname was the only surname in that name in the phone book. And I suddenly started getting these abusive phone calls, and all from this newspaper article. And it wasn't until I started on social media and I thought, I'm too scared to put myself out there, that I realised I still hadn't quite healed that younger version of me that was terrified of these phone calls. Because he kept saying, I know where you live and all this sort of stuff. And I had a little petrol station job at the time, and we had people paid by cheque, so I used to check the surnames on every cheque. Are you the person that's been phoning me? Like this.
Terrifying.
And so I was like, but it's like I buried that, And it wasn't until I started promoting myself on social media I thought, oh my God, now I know why I'm feeling so anxious about it. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. So I can tap on that event, and now I feel safer,
I love that you've been able to pinpoint that moment, because I genuinely think that, especially for women, when we were at school, right, you were raised to follow the rules, to tick the boxes, to be the good girl, don't cause a fuss.
Yeah. Good girls.
Keep yourself small, don't outshine anyone, and God forbid you're intelligent and go on to have a good career because you should be at home with kids, right? Like, there's all these crazy messages about what's acceptable and what's not, and don't be loud, don't be vivacious, don't be sexy either, because that's not okay. It's wild to me. And what has happened is that we have all these women who are absolutely terrified of even saying, this is an idea that I have, or this is something that's really helped me, because they are so fearful of the repercussions, maybe not just for them, but for their kids too, right? And, to do that to a child actually does give them a visibility wound, right? And we carry that into our adult life. And I think it's easy to, so many of the women I speak to come from corporate, other industries where you're a number, and then suddenly when you decide to launch a business, you are, whether you like it or not, the main character in a life where you've been hiding and been doing everything to avoid being the main character. That's terrifying. You're pushed into the limelight.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't suddenly feel safe. And interestingly, I was at networking this morning, and so many people, we all had to go around the room and do a little 1 minute of introduce, and everyone's like, oh, I hate this bit. And isn't it interesting we can advocate for our kids because, they're in our hearts, but when it comes to advocating for ourselves, it feels too exposed, too just too raw. And it's so strange how, I mean, I will fight tooth and nail for my kids.
Oh, she's through that now. She's found her power. Yeah, I would kill for my children. Like, there's nothing that would stop me. But yeah, there was a version of me, not now, but there was a version of me that would not have, I mean, that literally, I wouldn't put my hand up in the classroom at school to go to the toilet. Like, I did not want to be seen or heard. And now we've done a bit of a 180, and that's my job, to help other women be seen and heard. It's really difficult, I think, when there is
absolutely
these historic instances, like you say, of all this baggage that we're carrying, that you are helping women work through with the EFT, but also these societal expectations placed on women about how you should be, who you should be, what you should be doing, especially as a mother.
As much as life is supposed to be equal now, apparently, it's really not. I mean, like a day, how, I was a stay-at-home mum. I chose to do that, really wanted to be as good a mum as I could be, because I wanted to prove it was possible almost. But now it's time for me. And I find myself thinking, I do everything up here. I'm in my office and I'm doing social media, I'm talking to people, blah, 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 blah. And yet I still go downstairs. When's dinner, Mum? I mean, my kids do their own washing 100%. And stuff, but it's just like I still 100%. Get everything else done. Yeah. I'm thinking, wow, it's almost like I'm doing 100%. Double. Where did I find the time? But that's just what we do, isn't it?
It's time to launch a podcast, because there is a rise in feminine consciousness, sisterhood, women just shining a light on years of bullshit, shall we say. Let's condense it into that one word. But women are taking a stand and they're saying, do you know what? I can have what I want. I might not be able to have it all